In the opening scene, Ruby reads aloud to the members of her book club. The paragraph she reads leads to an interesting discussion among the members, which includes Ruby's mother, Diane, and her mother's friends. They inform Ruby that they have something to tell her, and she immediately knows that they've set up another blind date for her. She reminds them of how the last one went, but they're still hopeful that the next one will be better. Ruby isn't looking for love at the moment, and wants to focus on her writing, as she's trying to get a book deal. Diane reveals that she had submitted Ruby's Viking story to a platform to get her into a writer's retreat, and announces that she has been chosen to attend said retreat, passing a file to her. Ruby reads the file and sees that she's been accepted along with 2 other writers, which has all been paid for. She doesn't know how to feel, but she's not particularly excited about it. In the next scene, Woody, the new owner of a wilderness resort at Lake Tahoe, and Dean, his father's friend and business partner, are at the Westwind, talking about the Romance Writers Retreat. Woody isn't excited about the event, but Dean is excited to host the event at their hotel. Dean understands that Woody is still struggling to move on from his recent breakup, and the last thing he wants is to be around romance writers, but they need the money, as well as the publicity. Marcus Harlow, the host of the retreat, is a famous writer who would help boost the popularity of their hotel. Dean also thinks that the retreat might be a way for Woody to mend his broken heart. Dean is taking time off, while Woody will be in charge of the event. Back at Ruby's house, Ruby waits till her mother's friends are gone before discussing the retreat. She's not happy that her work was sent to a platform she believes to be a pyramid scheme, but Diane tells her that it's harder to get into the retreat than getting into Yale. Diane thinks she'll be able to learn from the host, her favorite writer. Ruby is now nervous as the realization that she'll be meeting her favorite writer, Marcus, hits her. Her mother promises to be there for moral support. Ruby confesses that she wants to land a publishing deal through her writing skills, but she thinks the retreat is more stressful. Diane reminds her that the deadline is the next day, so she decides to think about it. Later on, Ruby stays up, reading one of Marcus's books, enjoying every line and every page. She walks to her table, which has a couple of scattered letters on it, and picks up a letter of rejection. She whips out her phone and calls her mother, telling her that she's decided to go to the retreat. Diane is excited to hear the news. In the next scene, Marcus arrives at the Westwind and Woody welcomes them. They both introduce themselves and exchange pleasantries. Marcus asks about the plan for the next day, but Woody gives them the rules of the hotel instead. Marcus is not letting him avoid his question and asks if he's the activities coordinator, but Woody isn't aware of that. Marcus shows Woody the file that says that he's the activities coordinator, with Woody's picture attached. Marcus asks if he didn't approve the flyer, and Woody admits he isn't aware of it. Still, Woody has no choice and asks what he needs to do. Marcus reveals that he has to plan wilderness activities to follow the love and wilderness theme of the retreat, aimed at inspiring the writers. Woody lies that he has a list of activities for the retreat, and he simply wants to surprise them, adding that the wilderness is an unexpected place. Marcus likes the idea of expecting the unexpected. Woody gives them their keys. Meanwhile, Marcus's assistant, Tim, advises Woody to make dairy-free milk options available for Marcus. Later on, Ruby and her mother arrive at the Westwind Hotel, where they meet Woody, who asks if they're checking in. Her mother tries to rizz Woody up, which embarrasses Ruby. She confirms that they're checking in for the writer's retreat. Woody thinks they're both writers, but Diane corrects him, saying that Ruby is the writer while she's on vacation. He helps Ruby get their luggage out of the trunk and starts a conversation with her, asking about her writing job. Ruby reveals that she's an accountant, who's trying to be a novelist. She has also seen the packet, which shows him as the activities coordinator, and informs him that she's not good with outdoor activities. She does not fail to ask if there is any activity that would put them in harm's way. Woody gives her an idea of some activities they'll be participating in, and jokes about visiting some bears in a cave, which makes her panic, but he calms her down. When she learns that her idol Marcus has arrived, Ruby wants a description of him. Woody doesn't oblige and gives her a room key instead. He picks up her bag and sees a bear spray, which he finds surprising. Ruby bumps into Marcus on her way to the room. She apologizes and immediately recognizes him, introducing herself as one of the writers participating in the retreat. He reveals that her novel is one of his favorites. This means a lot to Ruby, who informs him about the book club back home. Just then, Tim interrupts the conversation to inform Marcus that a studio director is on the phone, so he has to leave. In Ruby's room, she is arranging her things when Woody knocks. She lets him in and he gives her the bag he saw on the floor, as well as the bear spray, which embarrasses her. He teases her about it before leaving. Afterward, Ruby meets her mother downstairs at the hotel bar. They're being served by Woody, and she can't help but point out how it seems like he does all the work. Diane informs her that Woody's family has owned the hotel for generations, and he adds that they've owned it since the 1800s. Diane thinks he's cute, but Ruby doesn't see it. She then recounts her encounter with Marcus in an excited tone. A woman named Rachel overhears Ruby and walks up to them. introducing herself as a writer. Rachel confesses that she knows the other writer, but doesn't recognize Ruby's name, so Ruby points out that she's new in the novel industry. After this, they go ahead and meet the other writers. While Ruby and Rachel are on their way to meet the third writer on the lawn, Rachel prepares Ruby for possible hostile treatment, informing him that he's competitive, but he is great once she gets to know him. Rachel and the man are in the same club for successful writers, so she knows him well. They meet the man, Fitz, and Rachel introduces Ruby to him. Ruby is met with harsh remarks from Fitz, who suspects that she pulled some strings to be at the retreat, pointing out the fact that she has not published any book. All through this, Ruby is calm and smiling as she informs them that her mother submitted her work without her knowing. Ruby finds out he has published a lot of books, and surprisingly, his pen name is Judith Blue. Rachel assures her that she'll do good, but Fitz doesn't hide his competitiveness. The next day, Ruby is dressed up for the activities, but Woody points out her white shoes. She doesn't see anything wrong with wearing them, so he lets her be. Outside, Ruby constantly writes on her notepad while the others prepare for the activities. Marcus gives a little speech and announces the prize for the winner of the retreat, adding that they want the writers to add details of the wilderness in their proposals. He introduces Woody as the person who will be showing them everything about the wilderness. When it's time to leave, Marcus gets a message. He announces that he won't be able to go with them, because he has to attend to some business. The participants pair up and Ruby gets to be Woody's partner. In the next scene, Woody is hiking up a mountain, with Ruby trudging behind him. They get to a cliff, where she enjoys the awesome view. Next, he shows her some mountain berries and stops her when she tries to pluck some, saying that they're poisonous. During all of this, Ruby expresses how she isn't happy that she doesn't have time to complete her proposal. Woody continues moving as he shows her other things around the mountain. He doesn't notice that Ruby isn't following anymore, until later. He then finds her writing something in her book and he lectures her for not following the buddy system, to which Ruby replies that she wanted some rest, and had to write an idea that came to her. Woody understands and takes a look at her dirt-covered shoes. Ruby reveals that she wants to impress Marcus with her proposal, and she starts talking about his achievements. Ruby feels the need to win Marcus over with her proposal. Woody is fine with this, as long as she follows the rules. She tries to stand up, but feels pains all over her legs. Woody laughs before offering to give her a piggyback ride. She refuses and tries to walk by herself, but soon gives up and accepts Woody's offer, making him promise not to tell anyone about it. In the next scene, Ruby meets her mother at the beach and narrates how her day went. She also talks about the winning prize of the competition. Ruby is nervous because she's facing two famous writers, and informs her mother that Judith Blue is a man. Diane advises her to follow her instincts, but Ruby feels like her instincts are not to be trusted. Diane wonders why she didn't ask Marcus for help, so Ruby reminds her of how busy he is. After calming down with the help of her mother, Ruby leaves. Just then, Dean, who had been raking, joins Diane and starts a conversation with her. He makes her laugh when he uses a pickup line on her. Dean seems to be quite taken by Diane. He introduces himself and she does the same before he leaves. Meanwhile at the inn, Ruby sees Marcus with his luggage. He asks about the hike and she informs him that it went well. She wonders if he's moving rooms, but Marcus reveals that he has to go to Los Angeles because one of his novels is being adapted. He assures her that he'll be back in a few days, adding that his assistant knows what to do. He wishes her good luck and leaves. In the next scene, Ruby talks with Diane about how the retreat feels like summer camp, because she doesn't understand how hiking will help her writing, but she advises her to give it a chance. Ruby informs Diane that Marcus is gone for a few days, adding that she doesn't see the point of anything if he's not around. But her mom reminds her that Marcus is a successful man. Ruby confesses that she wants to get to know him, and feels stupid for hoping he'll take her under his wing, but Diane thinks it's possible. Ruby changes the topic to ask what they'll do for dinner, but is surprised to hear that Diane has a date with Dean. She walks away, leaving Ruby shocked. Later on, Ruby meets Woody, who's happy to see that her leg is working. Ruby thanks him for carrying her back to the hotel, and asks where she could get dinner. So, he gives her directions. Woody watches as she walks out of the door. She turns to wave goodbye to him before walking out, unaware of the fact that she had just stolen Woody's heart. He watches her with his mouth open, and is soon interrupted by Dean, who asks who Ruby is. Dean also points out the fact that his mouth is open, and Woody makes up some excuse, but Dean doesn't buy any of it. He starts walking away, and Woody wonders where he's going, so Dean informs him about the date he's having with the guest. In the next scene, Woody sees Ruby writing outside and wonders why he's always seeing her writing. She informs him about the two other writers, who belong to a club, and are successful with books that are published, while she only has rejection letters. She thinks that the retreat is her only chance to get published, and to also get into the club. Woody invites her to make some s'mores with them, but she turns him down because she has to work. Woody thinks she's not in the club because of how she restricts herself, and not because others don't want her there. He wishes her good luck and walks away. Later on, Ruby walks into her room and sees a box of shoes with a letter from Woody. She reads the letter and smiles while admiring the shoes. The next day, Ruby goes downstairs, all dressed for the hike. Woody compliments her shoes, the one he got her, and she smiles. She wonders how he got the correct shoe size, and he reveals that he had to guess. This time, they're off to hike on a bigger mountain. During the hike, Ruby struggles to follow Woody up the trail. She thanks him for the shoes, and he jokes that it was to avoid carrying her down the mountain again. Ruby looks ahead and dreads walking to the top of the mountain. She tries to sneak her way out of it, but Woody isn't letting her. He gives her some sweets to calm her down while encouraging her at the same time. He even holds her hand as they continue their journey. A few moments later, Ruby is struggling to climb a steep part of the mountain, even though she's using a rope. Woody climbs it easily without any tools. He tries to boost her morale and give some pep talk, but Ruby remains helpless. He climbs down and drags her up with every step he takes. Ruby relishes in the fact that she didn't meet her end. They get to the top of the mountain and enjoy the view of the ocean. Woody asks her to describe what she sees, and she does so, describing it as a writer would. He notices signs of rain and tells her that they have to go. He whistles and announces to everyone that they have to return. Someone whistles back to him and he's impressed that they are catching on. Later on, Ruby and Woody arrive at the hotel. While it is raining heavily, they get off the car and run into the hotel. The power goes out, but Woody assures them that there's a backup generator. Unfortunately, Dean walks in, informing them that it isn't working. Woody asks them not to panic and he decides to make some fire, letting them know that it'll take some time. Diane walks up to Ruby, who's proud to tell her mother that she climbed a mountain. Diane is surprised and wonders who convinced her. She finds out that Woody is the one responsible for her daughter's courage and she smiles, giving Ruby a look she knows all too well. Her mother assumes things are working out between Ruby and Woody. A few minutes later, Woody has the fireplace set up, and a distressed Tim wonders when they'll have power, because he has to call Marcus. Woody replies that it'll take an hour. When Tim returns to his seat, he awkwardly informs her that Marcus will be returning the next day or the day after. She is curious to know what it's like to work with a talented person and he simply replies that it's good. Woody finds it amusing that Tim is already going crazy when the power outage hasn't been up to an hour, but Ruby believes that it's because there's not much to do to pass the time. Woody then decides to tell them a story, something his father used to do during heavy rainstorms. It is a story about how his father met his mother. This intrigues everyone. His father decided to live in the wilderness for a year with no phone, or any modern stuff, after getting his heart broken. After a year, his father decided to open up to love and asked God for a sign. Just then, the power returns, making the story more fun. Tim is happy to finally be able to call Marcus and excuses himself. Ruby is curious and wants him to continue. Woody continues the story, saying that after his father asked for a sign, he heard a splash in the water. It was his mother. His mother was scared to see his father, who was huge, coming out of the forest, but things worked out and they became inseparable. The story makes everyone smile and they call it a night. Late in the night, Ruby wakes up and goes down to the lobby to continue her writing. Woody walks in, wondering what she's doing awake. She asks if it's okay that she uses the lobby since she couldn't sleep, and Woody assures her that it's fine. She wonders why he's awake and he decides to show her the reason. He takes her to see the stars and describes them. She's enjoying his company and finds out that his father is late. Ruby is surprised to find out that it is only recently he took over the hotel, since he's good at what he does. They talk about Dean and Diane, and Ruby expresses how happy she is that her mother is thinking about herself. Woody wonders what she means by that, and Ruby reveals that her mother is the one who submitted her work for the retreat, adding that Diane has been trying to get her to go on vacation with her, so when she saw the opportunity, especially one with Marcus, she went for it. Woody doesn't understand why everyone likes Marcus, so she advises him to read some of Marcus's works to understand better, but he's not a fan of romance novels. He gets carried away and says that it's a form of deception, making the mood awkward. Woody comes to his senses and apologizes to her before she goes back to the hotel. The next day, Ruby is happy that they're not hiking, but the joy is short-lived when Woody announces that they'll be camping in the mountains. He gives them a list of tips Marcus thinks will help them with their writing. The list isn't what they expect, but Woody couldn't care less as he informs them that they have 10 minutes to prepare for the camping. In the next scene, while Tim and Ruby are setting up a tent, she asks how she can be a professional writer. Tim thinks he doesn't need Marcus to teach her how to be a good writer, adding that he has read her story. Ruby inquires if Marcus has helped him with his writing, and he acknowledges that he has helped in a way. He reveals that he advised him to be one with the page. In the next scene, Marcus is at a meeting with the studio directors. He's excited to see the cast of the adaptation of his novel, but is told that they won't be able to work with his novel as they need something from the medieval period. Marcus checks his suitcase and brings out a manuscript, briefing them on the story. The manuscript is the story that Ruby submitted for the retreat. They love the story. Marcus claims that he needs to work on it a bit, so he'll submit it by the end of the week. He deviously covers Ruby's name in front of the manuscript. At the camp, while Ruby is writing, Woody plays the guitar. He initially stops playing, thinking that he's not playing well, but Ruby likes it and asks him to continue. Woody confesses that he'd love to live in the wild, making Ruby ask if he has a broken heart like his father. He reveals that he broke up with his girlfriend a few months ago, and he explains a bit about his ex and why they broke up. He's curious and wants to know if she has dated before, and she reveals that she prefers to write about love than to be in love. She has dated before but hasn't connected with anybody yet, because she gets spooked when a person doesn't meet her expectations. She admits that romance novels have influenced her standards, and this makes Woody laugh. Just then, they hear a noise, followed by a whistle, so Woody leaves to help Fitz with his tent. Later on, Ruby wakes up in the middle of the night and leaves her tent to start working on her proposal. Woody comes out of the bush, scaring Ruby. She wonders why he's still awake, and he reveals that he's tracking, which is what they do when camping. He asks her to follow him and she hesitates before doing so. The next morning, while Woody and Ruby are in the woods, they listen and hear the splashing of water, and they decide to track it by following the sound. Ruby doesn't think that she can find it and wants them to return to camp, but Woody is sure that she can do it. She soon gets the hang of it and heads for the water source. She's excited that she found it and is met with another view. She confesses that the thought of being somewhere remote used to scare her, but now, she feels better about it. Woody has always wanted to live in the city, but soon accepted the way of life in the wilderness after his father's passing. A stick cracks and Ruby starts panicking, thinking it's a bear, but he assures her that it's just a small animal. She is sure that he thinks she's a paranoid tourist, and he admits that he does, but is fine with it. He apologizes for being harsh on her, and for expecting everyone to be used to the way of life in the wilderness. Ruby also apologizes for not respecting the place. They shake hands to seal the truce, and she reveals that she might consider visiting the wilderness once in a while. Her statement reminds him that she's only in town for a few days. At the camp, Woody gives them the quest of building a shelter. Marcus joins them and Ruby is happy to see him. Marcus suggests that they return to the hotel, but Woody wants the activities to continue. Marcus brings up the suggestion again, and everyone except Woody is happy to leave, including Ruby. At the hotel, Marcus asks to speak with Ruby over dinner and she agrees happily. She leaves to meet her mother at the beach, as well as work on her proposal. Diane is happy to spend time with her and Ruby apologizes for being too busy with the retreat. But Diane reveals that she has been spending time with Dean. Diane, noting the connection between her daughter and Woody, asks what she thinks about him. Ruby thinks he's nice. The answer is a little bit disappointing to Diane, so Ruby reminds her that she has only known him for a few days. On a different topic, Diane is happy to be on vacation with her daughter. Just then, Woody shows up with some canoes, asking if they want to join in. Diane convinces her daughter to join him, but she doesn't go with them. While canoeing, Woody apologizes for acting out, adding that he thought she was enjoying camping. She confirms that she was indeed enjoying the camping. He becomes interested in what she's writing, so she gives him a brief detail of what it's about. She compares her book to Marcus's, but Woody advises her to write what she wants, since it's her book. Ruby confesses that she enjoyed all the activities even though she's a scaredy cat. He throws the oar in the water to tease her, knowing that it'll float back up. She finds it funny and they both laugh. Later, at the hotel, Woody sees Ruby going out with Marcus and he seems jealous. Meanwhile, Ruby and Marcus go to a bar and he asks what her plans for her medieval story are, but she hasn't thought about it. Marcus reveals that the head of the studio in Los Angeles is looking for a story just like hers, and confesses that he pitched her book to them. Ruby is happy to hear the news. Finally, Marcus suggests that they work together. She's worried about the book deal, but he assures her that the book deal is nothing compared to a movie deal. Ruby wants to focus on her proposal, but because of the latest development, Marcus suggests that she focuses on her proposal, while he works on her story. She's more than happy with the arrangement and Marcus asks if it'll be okay for him to take the lead in handling the project. She also agrees to this and they toast to their partnership. In the next scene, Ruby returns to the hotel and walks in on Woody reading one of Marcus's books. He claims that he wants to know what the big deal about him was, and having read it, he admits that Marcus is good. Ruby discovers that her mother has gone on a date with Dean. She's starving despite going for dinner with Marcus, because the portions they serve are too small. So Woody decides to open the kitchen. He puts up a sign that says he has gone fishing and leaves with Ruby. Meanwhile, Dean and Diane have a date at the beach, with a beautiful setup done by Dean. The chemistry between the two is palpable. Back at the hotel, Woody and Ruby make mac and cheese. Later on, Tim goes outside to answer a call, while Woody and Ruby enjoy their mac and cheese. While Ruby enjoys the food, she begins to understand why Woody loves the place. She thinks more people should know about the place and he thinks that she sounds like his father. She reveals that Marcus wants to use her novel for a movie deal. Woody thinks it's a good idea, but thinks the book deal is more important to her. She admits that it's indeed important, but she thinks the movie deal will be better. She notices his countenance and thinks that he's not happy for her, but he is only wary of people who make promises. Ruby appreciates the food and leaves to work on her proposal. He sees a notebook with a draft of a novel and thinks that it's for Marcus. The next day, Woody goes to Marcus's room to give him the notebook he found. He takes the book and asks him not to share anything he read. In the next scene, Ruby joins Marcus as he prepares to have a FaceTime meeting with the studio executives. The meeting begins and they exchange pleasantries. Marcus introduces Ruby to the executives who love her story. They want to modernize her novel and make different changes to it, which Marcus has no problem with. However, Ruby is against the idea. Every detail is important in her novel and she doesn't want them to change anything. Marcus asks for a moment to talk with her, after which she is convinced to continue with the meeting. In the next scene, Woody sees Tim outside the bar and chats with him for a bit. Tim writes something on a piece of paper, folds it, and tucks it into the check booklet before leaving. Woody sees the paper, which shows Tim thanking Woody for his kindness. He notices the handwriting and runs after him. He informs Tim that he found his notebook, which confuses him. Woody is sure that it was the handwriting he saw on the notebook that he gave Marcus. Tim pretends not to know anything and walks away, but Woody already knows the truth. So, he advises Tim to stop ghostwriting for Marcus. At the hotel, Woody goes to Ruby's room and advises her not to trust Marcus. She is confused, asking him what he found out. Ruby doesn't believe him, thinking that he's trying to turn her against Marcus because he's jealous. Her words hurt him and he walks away. In the next scene, Ruby meets with a publisher to whom she pitches her proposal. The woman likes the story and mentions a book from Marcus, but Marcus doesn't know what novel she's talking about. He looks at Tim, who then says the name of the novel, making Ruby suspect that something is wrong. The woman thinks that it's hard to sell books like that, but Ruby is sure that her novel is perfect. Marcus informs the publisher that Ruby is working on a movie deal with him, but she interrupts, claiming that she's no longer interested in letting him use her novel for his movie deal. She doesn't want to be like Tim, and the publisher wonders what is going on. Ruby reveals that she came to see her favorite author only to find out that he wasn't the one who was writing all the books. The publisher turns to Marcus for an explanation and he admits that Tim helps, but denies the fact that he writes everything. Finally, Tim speaks up, confessing that he's been writing for Marcus since he graduated. The publisher thanks them and informs them that the winner will be announced soon, adding that she'll deal with Marcus later. Afterward, Ruby goes looking for Woody, but nobody has seen him. Just then, the publisher shows up to announce the winner, which is Ruby. Everyone is happy for her and Diane hugs her. Tim appreciates her for standing up for him and he informs her that he was also given a book deal. She's happy to have met her favorite writer and congratulates him. They hug and Diane suggests celebrating her publishing deal. But first, Ruby has to find Woody to apologize to him. Ruby goes to the beach and sees him canoeing alone. She canoes towards him and calls out to him. She doesn't know how to steer the boat using the oar, so Woody helps her. She apologizes for not believing him and tells him that she got the book deal. Woody is happy to hear the news and they return to shore. She informs him that she needs somewhere quiet to work on her new book and would like to stay in the wilderness with him, if he's fine with it. Woody is more than happy to have her and he kisses her.